This is the 18th season of Bass Talk Live. With your host, Matt Pancraft. BTL is brought to you by Lowrance, Bass Cat Boats, AFCO, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, and Pro Guide Batteries.
BTL, coming at you!
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. Yes, I am back in studio after a lovely trip to scenic Ross Barnett Reservoir to kick off things in the Bassmaster Central Opens. It is also May. It is May 2nd. Things did not go very well for me at Ross Barnett. 102nd place finish. And typically when you finish low, but there's a large field, you always then have a caveat where you say out of 225 boats. Like if you finish in the top 10, you never are like, oh, it's 8th out of 225 boats. You just say I finished 8th. But then when you finish 102nd, you make sure you say finish 102nd out of 225 boats. It helps the ego a little bit. But mediocre finish at Ross Barnett. We will get into that tomorrow, where we will have a breakdown with the man who made things happen at Ross Barnett. That was Bradley Hallman, who did finish 14th in that event. He actually only had 8 pounds on the first day, was mired in triple digits, and then came back with the biggest bag of day 2 in the Bassmaster Open. So I think he might have had some GoPro issues on the second day when he had his 7 and his 5 pounder. That's typically how technology always works. But he does have some stuff from day 1. So we are going to break down the Open on Ross Barnett, which was won by new dad Lee Livesey, who has really kind of turned into a stable fixture on both the Elite Series and the Open level there. So Lee Livesey gets it done. Yes, my inbox was inundated that he did get it done, primarily on the back of a 25-pound bag that he caught on a Carolina rig on day 1. Yes, I watched a ton of people Carolina rigging, and yes, I am. Well, no, I'm not ready to add it to my arsenal yet, but I'm more open to it than I was before. Perhaps our guest today might have some insight as to statistical numbers of percentage of anglers who cash checks and win tournaments on Carolina rigs. We did not go over that in the pre-tournament meeting. It is none other than Ken Duke from Fishing Tackle Retailer, who is making his second appearance in 2022 on BTL. So we will get to Mr. Duke just here in a couple minutes. A lot of stuff to take note of that happened during the last week. There is only one more week, I guess, that I'm here and then gone, and then I'm actually back for a couple months. I was a little apprehensive, I guess is the word to say, going into April. With 3 Bassmaster Opens, the Dick Hiley St. Jude Classic, and then BTL weeks in between, and it has taken a mental and physical toll on me. I'm still doing good. Everything's going good, but I am ready to sleep in the same bed for a number of nights in a row and be able to plan out more than 4 days in advance. But last week, while we did have the recorded shows, John Canada, who I've actually gotten to know a little bit. He camps. He's rapped with the Reaction Innovations rap guy from Alabama. Super nice dude that I've gotten to know a little bit because in Florida, when I took the 1.5 ounce tungsten to my cheek, he was in the bag line and he's like, "Hey, see all my teeth? They're all fake. My brother set the hook and I took a tungsten to my teeth and knocked all my teeth out." So now we're kind of like kindred spirits. We both have severe tungsten injuries due to flipping mats. But anyway, he won the MLF Pro Circuit last week on Pickwick, 20 pounds even. Justin Lucas gets second place in that, which was actually back-to-back seconds coming off of, I believe, a second place in a BPT2. So Justin Carson Lucas back on. Spencer Shuffield, halfway through the year, takes over the Angler of the Year lead in the pro circuit with 538 points. And then we also had a couple of Toyota series that were in action. Brian Greer, 58.05, wins the Toyota series on Clear Lake. And then a guy that we actually talked about with Todd Castledine when Todd was on. Really good feedback from the Todd Castledine show. First time he was on BTL, and that show ran last week. We went 2 hours over a bunch of different topics and got a lot of good feedback. Big shout out to Todd Castledine for taking time out to do that. But one of the topics that we talked about was Jeff Reynolds, how good he is regionally in that area, specifically on Texoma. Also pretty good on Grand, as he weighs in 54 pounds over 3 days, primarily sight fishing on a low and clear Grand Lake, kind of primed for sight fishing. But his first Toyota Series win is Costas back then, and then Rayovacs before that, and Stratton Series before that. But since 2017, so he gets the second AAA Series win of his career on Grand this past weekend. And then there is also some action that is going on as we speak live this morning, and that would be the BPT on Lake of the Ozarks. Very intrigued to see how this event shook out. You know, Lake of the Ozarks is one of those lakes that the later it gets into the summer, the less and less conducive it is to bass boats on the weekend during nice weather. It's basically impossible to fish out of a bass boat there on a weekend during the summer. Or any time, just because of all the big boats and all the pleasure boaters that they have out there. But they're sliding an event in before things get crazy down there, kind of a transition time, a sight fishing time. And this is day 2 of qualifying for Group A, and a name that we haven't seen a lot at the top recently, but would expect to see a lot during a spawning event this time of the year would be Shaw Grigsby. He's currently leading in Group A as they go into the cut. And then yesterday in Group B, no surprise to see Jacob Wheeler at the top there, but the weights are really low. I know I was talking to Alton Jr. beforehand during our interview, and we were thinking maybe 100 pounds a day wouldn't be out of the ordinary, but Wheeler substantial lead in Group A, and then he'll be on the water tomorrow. One more piece of I guess kind of news, a plead, a request before we take a quick break and then get back to Ken Duke, where we will dive into a number of topics. I'm excited to talk to Ken Duke. We're gonna cover everything from ICAST. We're gonna do a little bit of classic and Redcrest review, compare and contrast, and maybe talk a little bit about Jacob Wheeler and the age of some of these guys that seem to be very dominant. And then talk a little bit about Big Bass. No, we're not doing the Big Bass show, but Mr. Duke may or may not have some breaking news when it comes to his knowledge of giant bass. I guess all 3 species: smallmouth, largemouth, and spots, but primarily largemouth. Is that right, Ken? I'm still looking at him back down. Primarily like large, all of them, all of them. Yeah, all of the above for that. But I leave on Wednesday afternoon, so short week this week. We have Ken Duke today, Bradley tomorrow, and then day 4 on day 3 with Frank Scalish on Wednesday, and then I leave to go to Florida for the Dick Hiley St. Jude Bass Classic with I think there's like 80 or 90 boats up there on the Mississippi River out of Minnesota. Big shout out. I think we sold over right around 250 T-shirts, with all of the profits going to St. Jude raised right at $2,500 just from the BTL listeners through the T-shirt sales. So I've seen some of those appearing in the mail. Continue to post and tag pictures of you guys wearing your St. Jude's and BTL shirts. But I also wanted to point out there is a banner if you wanted to get a T-shirt. It's too late now. That closed a couple weeks ago. But if you wanted to just do a donation to St. Jude's, and they've raised millions of dollars. It's like the 20-something year that they've done this. But there is a direct link on BassZone.com, just the main banner right there, and it goes directly to the tab. I'm fishing it with Adam Bartuzek of Crappie Chronicles fame. He's also like an independent guy who does a lot of media and stuff in the industry. But there's kind of a competition between all the teams for money raised, so that $2,500 will go directly to the $4,000 that has been directly raised through the link. So if you would like to donate, that will be open through Friday. 100% of that goes to St. Jude's. It's just kind of tagged to Adam and I's team. And the cool thing with that is they determine the boat draw based on how much money you have raised. So it's kind of like a double incentive there. You raise more money for St. Jude, you get an earlier boat draw. And Adam was texting me earlier. And right now the top 10, I think 10th, and he said we need to get an early boat draw because that determines how many giant smallmouth we catch, is like at 8,500, and I think with everything we're at like 6,500. So it'd be nice to get to that $10,000 mark. So if you would like to donate to St. Jude directly on behalf of our team, and then get us a better boat draw and help St. Jude primarily, direct link on basszone.com. All right, it is good to be back live. We're going to take a quick break. Got some new features from Lawrence, too. I think we got a couple new commercials in the mix. And then we will come back with the one and only Mr. Ken Duke. It is BTL on Monday, May 2nd.
The time for you to get Active Target Live Sonar is now. Purchase Active Target or an Active Target Elite FS bundle between May 1st and July 4th. You'll get $200 cash back and change the way you fish. Target fish with Active Target and let Elite FS handle the rest. Active Target is also compatible with HDS Live and HDS Carbon. Active Target by Lawrence.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
I've made my living on the water for over 20 years.
For 14 years.
For over 23 years.
I've worn a bunch of different clothing brands over the years.
Some companies big.
And some companies small.
All of them said they were making clothing for us.
But none of them knew us.
None of them were us.
Except for one.
Except for one.
Except one.
AFCO.
AFCO.
AFCO. AFCO.
Fishing isn't part of us. It is us.
The KVD 100 jerkbait. 15 different colors. A perfect combination of roll, wiggle, and flash. Increased castability. 3D eyes. Premium black nickel hooks. KVD. Tie one on. Striking lures.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? Well, the Bass Tank is here to help you. The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
Welcome back, BTL on a Monday, live in studio from a very stormy Oklahoma. Expecting some severe weather rolling through later today. I don't know if that's going to hit them in the I would assume it's going to got to go through that Ozark region too, where those guys are fishing on the BPT. Somewhere where it seems like it's always good weather is sunny Florida, and that is where we find one flower shirt wearing Ken Duke from Fishing Tackle Retailer. What's up, Mr. Duke? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me on, man. And yes, it is sunny, it is warm, it is beautiful here in the Sunshine State.
What does your wardrobe consist of? Because you're always you're kind of a I wouldn't call you an eccentric dresser, but you do like the button down floral. Is it just a wide array of Hawaiian themed button downs in your wardrobe, similar to sweater vests and Nike polos in Jeffrey's wardrobe?
There's something to that, Matt Pangrak. Yeah, I wear a lot of as my wife calls them, aloha shirts. I'm from Florida. I'm proud to be from Florida. I'm a fat guy. It hides my being fat maybe a little bit. And, most of my clothing, as I expect it's true for you too, most of my clothing is fishing stuff that people have given me, and it's branded. So I've got a logo on it, and they're not always appropriate given the circumstances and where I'm at. So when I'm on BTL, I'm either going to wear something with BTL on it or one of BTL sponsors maybe, or I'm going to break out the Aloha shirts.
You put a lot of thought into it then.
I try to, man. I'm not going to come out here and be branded for somebody who's not supporting BTL.
I have that issue with the AFCO stuff. Like it's it's all I wear. That's the problem. So then it's like specific, like, oh, it's like going out non-fishing related, like a dinner or something. I have to consciously make an effort not like, to like to purchase clothing to wear that is not just the normal everyday stuff that I throw on.
Well, and my wife is kind of my fashion guide here. She's horrified by the way I dress myself. So usually she's picking out stuff for me.
You look great.
But you can't go wrong with AFCO, man. Not only is it great stuff, they're great people. It's a great company.
It is.
Can't go wrong.
I've always wondered what happens when a guy like Full Sail changes. Like boat companies, like a major tackle company or everything, like a guy who's been with a company for 10 years. Like I would imagine like Gerald Swindle has just had to overhaul his entire closet like 2 or 3, you know what I mean? There's just certain guys that you become synonymous and then you change brands, but then you're big on like the branding. Like where does all that go? Are there people in like third world countries that are walking around in that clothing, or does it go to high school? Like what happens to those closets full of clothing that no longer is now applicable?
And it's not just the clothing. Sometimes it's rods, it's reels, it's baits, it's all kind of stuff. And what happens in a lot of cases. Of course, a lot of it's donated, given away to local kids, friends, family. But a lot of people call Brody Broderick. And Brody makes a lot of money on eBay by selling a lot of pro angler memorabilia.
Brody of the Lake.
Yeah, Brody of the Lake. Exactly.
Is that what he was just on? I was just on that's how quick this has gone for me. Well, 6 months ago, I was on Travis Manson's Halloween special, and Brody was on there dressed up like a pirate.
Oh my God. Yeah. Those guys used to room together sometime on the tour back when they were both in the elites. You can hear some hilarious and harrowing horror stories about some of their experiences.
I'm trying to see if I can find what his channel is, or what is that called on
eBay? Yeah.
On eBay.
I don't know the ins and outs of eBay like that, but for the folks who are not aware, Brody made a substantial part of his living back in the day. Like if a guy like Denny Brower was going to be relocating, for example, from Table Rock Lake to Del Rio, Texas, he might call Brody and Brody would bring a semi tractor trailer down and load it up with a bunch of the old memorabilia that Denny no longer wanted. And then Brody would put it on eBay and they would split the proceeds. So if you see stuff on eBay, like some guy's 14th place plaque,
you can even buy that.
Invitational. Really? What's that?
You can buy trophies and everything.
Oh yeah, you can buy trophies. You can buy all kinds of jerseys. You can buy baits, rods, reels, all kind of stuff, and it's legit. I mean, it's authentic, used by those pros that Brody is working with. They need to get rid of the stuff and would love to have the opportunity to make a profit on it. So it's a cool opportunity for all involved.
There you go. Last time we had you on, we were kind of just getting into the season, talked a little bit about the off season, everything that was going on. Now we are absolutely in full swing. Kind of the 1st of May there is, I would say, the chaos time for everybody. And, you know, it's kind of where you see what's going well for guys, what's not going well, the trends that are happening in the industry. There's typically not much time to breathe between that end of April and the middle of May. In your capacity, is it the same with fishing tackle retailer too, as far as probably some of the busiest times of your year with what has happened and then what is coming up in a couple months?
Absolutely, Matt. You know, this is about to be the busiest time of the year for me. From right now, I just got an issue of FTR off to the printer. So we did, our team at FTR did, and now we're gearing up for one of our largest issues of the year. It's our July issue, is the next one we're working on. And that leads into ICAST, of course. It's our biggest issue. It's a lot of pages to fill. It's a lot of gear references in there. And ICAST, as you know, is the fishing industry's biggest trade show in the whole world. Somewhere around 13 to 16,000 people will converge upon Orlando, Florida, home to me, and they will be looking at all the latest gear from roughly 700 different fishing tackle manufacturers.
That's always kind of weird to me. So, like, there's some stuff that guys that are out that people know about that's being used this year, and then there's other stuff that won't be available for another year. Is that a manufacturer by manufacturer basis on when they tease it, debut it, when it comes out? Or like, let's take Christie's little deal that he won the Classic with, not the jig, but the FF minnow or whatever. It seems to me like he was like, hey, I had to come up with a name for that. We had to kind of push that. So like, will that be at like ICAST? You see what I'm saying there? Like, is each bait kind of dependent on how it works?
It is, and it's not by manufacturer really. It's really by, just as you said, it's by product. Sometimes these products are ready early, and they've already been on the market. Not only have guys been using them in tournaments, but in some cases, these products are already available at retail. But they're still relatively new. They've come out since the last ICAST, and so maybe they're going to be entered in the what's called the new product showcase, where products vie for trophies and to be named best of show. But typically the way the industry works is we have this big show in the middle of July every year, and a lot of the products you're looking at, and you know this, Matt, you're a veteran of many ICASTs, but a lot of the products we're looking at are not being made yet. They are not in the marketplace. They're brand new, and they're not going to even be made. They're not even going to be put into production unless the manufacturer sees enough media interest and enough buyer interest from retail and wholesale buyers to support a big manufacturing effort. So, and those products may not be available at retail until February, 9-10 months from now. So it varies depending on the product. It varies depending on the manufacturer. It's kind of all over the place, but you can walk up to a booth at ICAST. They'll show you their new fishing reel. You'll pick it up off the shelf. You'll turn the handle and realize there's nothing inside. There are no gears because they don't have a completed reel yet. All they can show you are the cosmetics of it.
One of our listeners kind of jumped the gun here, but that was also on the topic. He's saying, will Ken think that ICAST this year will be more normal with vendors like it was pre-pandemic? The last couple of years of ICAST, I feel like last year's, I didn't go to last year's, but from what I heard was fairly normal. But I mean, it's been an interesting last couple of years for ICAST.
It really has. And last year was quite normal. There were very, very few masks on the floor. But ICAST last year, and ICAST last year drew around 11,000 people, which I thought was spectacular attendance. It's usually around 15,000. Last year it was around 11,000. And a lot of the people who are conspicuously missing last year were from out of the country, and they had travel restrictions that maybe prevented them from coming to ICAST. A lot of folks from Canada were not there. A lot of folks from Asia were not there. And ICAST last year was a super spreader event. I mean, I could name you. There are hundreds of people who got COVID at last year's ICAST.
I was just more talking about like the vibe, the products, less online stuff now. Like we're back to like old school ICAST, right?
Oh yeah, we're back to old school ICAST. We were back to old school ICAST last year. I would honestly say the only difference between what I would call an ordinary ICAST and what we saw in 2021 here in Orlando was attendance was down maybe 25%. That's the only difference. This year, I expect attendance to be up again a little bit, but maybe not to full 15,000 plus numbers, because I think a lot of people, we've become aware now that it doesn't matter how many times you've been vaccinated. It doesn't matter how many masks you wear. You can still get this thing. And if you have comorbidity issues, I have comorbidity issues, by the way, then it's a problem. But you also have to make a decision based on your business. You have to make a decision based on how long are you going to allow this virus to alter your life and your lifestyle. And I plan to be at ICAST. I plan not to wear a mask. I plan to shake hands and hug the friends I see there. And I hope it's going to be pretty normal. I'm expecting really strong numbers. I'm expecting at least 11,000. Wow. I'm expecting roughly 700 exhibitors.
Wow. And for everyone who attends ICAST, like we've kind of talked about this every year, and I think most people understand now that it is not like an open show that people can come and purchase and look at stuff. You have to technically be like in the industry. There's different levels. There's buyers. There's media. There's people. It's basically inside the industry, but inside of that group, there's a number of different reasons why everyone attends ICAST. Run through just kind of the types of people that are going there, just in a quick synopsis.
Sure. It really boils down to three primary classifications of folks who are at ICAST. By far, the greatest numbers are what would be called exhibitors. Yeah. They're the folks who are manning the booths. They're showing everybody the new stuff. They're trying to sell stuff to the buyers, which are the second group. Retail and wholesale buyers. If you own a tackle store, if you're a wholesaler for tackle shops, then there's a great chance that you're going to be at ICAST, because you want to see the new stuff. You want to try to anticipate what's going to sell and make sure that it's in supply when consumers want it. And the third group is you and me, Matt, the media, the folks who are telling the stories about these new products. And I'd say over the last 15 years or so, ICAST has become less of a buying event, less activity from retail and wholesale buyers, and more activity from the media, who are there to maybe fill an otherwise slow time of the year, because there are not many tournaments going on around ICAST. The manufacturers want their pro staff people maybe to be in the booth. Mm-hmm. It's hot summertime. Maybe things slow down in the media end of things. So over the last 15, 20 years or so, media has flocked to ICAST to tell that story and fill some gaps.
I'm pulling up the weather. Jeffries would be proud of me. I don't know if you can hear the thunder rumbling in the background there, Ken, but
I do,
think
man.
one of these supercells might be upon us. You guys have a lot of thunder. Do you have a lot of thunderstorms down in Florida, or is it just hurricane or nice?
I think we lead the nation in lightning strikes.
Oh, that's something to be proud of.
Lightning strikes, alligator incidents, Florida man stuff generally. But hey,
now this is kind of clearing out. But the weather outlook says damaging winds, large hail, and possibility of tornadoes with some of the storms today. Have a plan and be prepared.
That's brutal. We have some, tornadoes here, and of course we have the hurricanes and stuff. But I look at the devastation that happens in Oklahoma. It seems quite regularly, and I am just amazed by it.
I'm looking forward to going to ICAST this year. This will be kind of the first ICAST, since taking over BTL. Normally Jeffries would have the meetings with sponsors, and then we would have a game plan and say, hey, here's what we want to make sure we cover all these new products so we can bring it back to the listeners and things like that. But it'll be an interesting vibe for me going solo this year. I'm looking forward to that. Like, kind of having the meetings, working that type of angle, which is something that I'm familiar with, but is kind of a new frontier.
I think it's going to be very cool for you. I think you're going to be fabulous at that aspect of the game as you are as host. I mean, you've just not missed a beat, and it's enormously impressive.
All right,
we need to talk about fishing after ICAST, by the way.
Oh, sticking around and fishing?
Yeah.
Well, I think that ICAST is literally on the tail end of a month away for me.
Oh, okay. I guess.
Because I think I do like Oneida, and then another Oneida, and then ICAST. It's like 4 weeks in a row. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We've never been in the boat together, I don't think, have we? We've been at the same media events, but we've never actually fished. That'd be fun.
See, I'm looking forward to that if you can make it, but I also get it. If you can't make it, understood. Yeah, it's being on the road a month is not good.
You did mention though that you got to spend some time in the boat with Lee Livesey recently at Gros Savant?
Taught Lee everything he knows.
Everything he knows.
Yeah, just last week, or actually the week before, I was at an American Baitworks media conference at Gros Savant in the Lake Charles, Louisiana area. And have you been to Gros Savant?
I have not.
Oh my God, Matt.
I know.
Oh my God. We talked about it last time I was on the show. We talked about my three of my favorite places to do media events, or just to go generally.
Yep.
And let's see, they are alphabetically. Anglers Inn, Mexico, Picachos and El Salto, Billy Chapman's place, Bienville Plantation in North Florida, fabulous fishing, accommodations, food, and Gros Savant, where I was with American Baitworks. Just an amazing place. I caught more fish on a hollow body frog in 2 days than I usually do in a year.
With Lee and a number of other professional
with Lee and Justin Hamner, who is just an awesome person, awesome angler.
He's a good dude.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I had so much fun fishing with him. And I've got a story to tell on Justin, but yeah, I got to fish a frog with Lee Livesey, and that was a real treat. You know, I've had a chance to fish a frog with Ishman Rowe and Dean Rojas, and now Lee Livesey. So I'm covering the frogmen of the world.
So he kind of won that, was it Chickamauga? Where
yeah,
he was throwing the frog. So is he a frog guru, or did he just happen to win that one on a frog at Chick?
No, he's a serious frog student.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, he really is. And he's serious about it. He's got a new series of rods, I think, actually from Halo, a Lee Livesey signature series. And I was using one of his rods that they're not designated to a technique. You know, it's not like this is your Texas rig, this is your Carolina rig, this is your frog, but it's the one he uses for a frog. And hopefully Halo is sending me that rod, because, you know, I didn't have a chance to carry it on the plane with me. So Matt, Valerie, Walt, send me the rod. But it was great. And Lee's got a jackhammer, lightning quick hook set. No waiting 2 seconds. He was just hammering them right away. And I learned a thing or two, just as I have from Ish and Dean. I learned a thing or two from Lee Livesey on the frog. Great guy. We also talked, one of his sponsors is this great country rock band called Whiskey Myers.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm a Red Dirt fan in Oklahoma, Ken, so very familiar. He's got a cool sponsor lineup.
Oh my gosh, he really does. And I was familiar with Whiskey Myers, had their albums, but I didn't realize he was sponsored by them. And we talked music and had a good time. It was a good time. We have time for a quick Justin Hamner story?
We have time for a slow Justin Hamner story.
All right. Now, one of the things I hear a lot about professional bass fishing over the last couple of years is that these guys have tunnel vision on their forward-facing sonar. And Justin's out there. He's with Lowrance, so he's dialed in on his active target, and I'm throwing a frog on the sides of the boat. He's looking out ahead of us at about scanning around, looking, and he's throwing a super spook, a big topwater bait, and he's watching the fish that are directly under it, and he's seeing when they're about to hit, and he's throwing jerk baits and other things too. But at this point, he's throwing this big super spook, and he's walking it across the surface. Gros Savant's generally pretty shallow, so we're fishing over these shallow flats with some cover on them, and he's just dialed in, just enormously focused on that screen, not looking at anything going on around him. And I'm watching this 6-foot alligator close in on his super spook.
And he's seeing what's under the water. So he's
looking at what's under the water.
Okay.
He's not noticing it, but I don't realize how focused he is on the screen and how impervious Justin is to everything else in the world. We're carrying on a conversation, but his visual world is, that big. And this alligator is getting closer and closer. I'm thinking, well, surely he sees the alligator, because the alligator is 6 feet long. The alligator is
decent sized alligator, but it's still small enough to where it is aggressive.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the alligator's not in any big hurry. He sees this little thing going across the surface, and Justin's pausing it quite a bit. So he's having no trouble tracking it, and he's making a beeline for it. And I'm not going to say anything, because obviously the man can see the alligator, right?
Yeah.
But no, the alligator just mows up and grabs it. And I say, Justin, you got one. Because he totally didn't see it. And he said, oh no. And he sets the hook trying to pull it away from the alligator, but it's too late. And he fights the alligator up close to the boat. And then the alligator opens up and the super spook pops out. But I thought, wow, what an illustration about how addictive and how totally engrossing that forward-facing sonar can
even
be.
on a top water.
And on a top
Which
water.
is where you think it would be more, hey, I'm not going to be staring at it. But I have been in the boat with John Sokup from the Bass Tank numerous times crappie fishing in the winter out of his boat, not mine. And, he runs the aluminum Express. And, we'll be up front and we'll be live scoping these crappie. And then all of a sudden the whole boat will just be like, and we'll have ran into the dam. like multiple times, like on multiple lakes, that's happened. And that's happened a lot with me too. It's more open water. I found it was very useful at a place like Ross Barnett. One of the things that I found is, since I've had forward-facing sonar on my boat, I have not, and knock on wood, I have not broken a trolling motor shaft, broken a prop off a trolling motor, messed up that, because multiple times I've been like, oh, there's something like it directly in front of the boat that comes right up to the surface, whether it's a T-post, rebar, a stump, or something. So I use it almost like a navigational aid, so I can, know where, how many times you spin around, you don't realize how far the tree comes out, and then it's in the tree, and you're like, oh man, no, I'm in trouble. Now you can see all that stuff, but
it's amazing. When Lowrance introduced Active Target October a couple of years ago, I was invited to their unveiling, and it was still kind of a prototype stage at that point. And you had their Mac Daddy, a lot of their Mac Daddy pro staff anglers there. Edwin Evers is there, Gary Klein is there, Jordan Lee is there, Skeet Reese, and the media is taking turns in the boats with some of these guys. But what was hilarious to me was these guys are just staring at that thing, just trying to learn it, trying to figure out how it works, and all that. And so several times media guys got off the boat, and the pro angler, didn't even realize they had been in the boat with them. You talk to the guy later and said, oh, I know you were out with so-and-so. He said, what? No, I wasn't. I said, yeah, you were. I watched you. You just didn't take your eyes off the unit.
That's funny.
It was amazing. So for the folks who don't have the forward-facing sonar stuff, like myself, we can still notice what's going on around us.
What's your thoughts on that? You think they should put limits on it? You think it should be the Wild West? Just personally, I mean, you've covered this game for a long time, Ken. You don't have to come out with an opinion if you don't want one. But what do you see going on with this?
I'm not good at being politically correct, so I always have an opinion.
All right.
I think they should not ban it. I'm not in favor of banning anything like that. If it's legal, let's see it. Let's see how far it can take us. Let's see what direction it spins us off in. Let's not ban the Alabama rig. Let's not ban forward-facing sonar. Let's not ban any of it. Last time I checked, you can give me all that stuff. You can send Kevin VanDam and Edwin Evers and Jacob Wheeler out with a tennis shoe and a cane pole, and they're still going to beat me. I hate when stuff like that is banned. I really hate it. I think it sets us back. I think it hurts our industry. I think it hurts our market and the business of our sport. So no, I'm not in favor of banning any of that.
There you go. I know it's a little bit late, but with just the schedules that both of us keep, we actually had a phone conversation about this, and I said, man, I need to get you back on before it's too far in the distant past. But we talked a little bit about Classic and Redcrest, and, there weren't a ton of guys that I don't think attended both of those things.
No, not a lot. You're right.
And I don't know if I would call you unbiased. I would not call you unbiased in your opinions of both, but you're fairly. I think it was interesting that we kind of came to the same conclusions, almost down to the word. When I said, "Hey, Ken," blah, I was talking. I said, "What'd you think about Redcrest?" And then you'd also been to the Classic, but. I did see you at Redcrest and have not had you on since then. I talked a little bit about it and talked about it. I was actually fairly impressed with it and thought it went well as a whole. But just kind of your overall impressions of Redcrest.
Yeah, I try to be unbiased. I try to look at it as objectively as I can. I would say this about Redcrest, and it's natural to compare it to the Classic because that's the most comparable thing we have out there. Attendance at Redcrest was a 3-day event, just like the Classic. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just like the Classic. Attendance on Friday was appalling, terrible, remarkably low. Attendance on Saturday was pretty good. Attendance on Sunday was lackluster. So I thought attendance was a little disappointing, but something to build on. Mm-hmm. I thought they had a great facility. It was a terrific, I can't remember the name of the place, but where they had it was awesome. I thought they did a great job of running the event. I thought it was the best run event of its kind that I've seen in a long, long while. I thought that the tournament itself was perhaps the most exciting tournament I've ever seen in a million years of covering and following tournaments. I've never seen anything that cool. And I'm not a guy who is a big advocate of every fish counts necessarily over 5 fish limit. I don't know that I even necessarily have a preference. But what I learned about the format, I thought I understood the format, intellectually. Mm-hmm. But what I learned when I was watching it live on the screens at their expo was that it makes such a difference when the tournament is close. A couple of years ago when Edwin Evers won the Redcrest and he basically doubled the next closest.
Was that on the Mississippi River where he was catching them like every cast? It was like over before it started.
Every cast in the back of that creek, every cast. He was releasing fish that didn't even get weighed because they were having problems with the scale. It was just an incredible butt
display.
Yeah, it was an incredible display of angling skill and finding fish and awesome display. And that was cool. And that was fun to watch on some level. But this year's Redcrest was exciting in a different way. It was wildly close. And when Bobby Lane caught a fish with less than 3 minutes to go, might have been less than 2 minutes to go, put it on the scales. It had to weigh a minimum of 2 pounds, throws it on the scales. It's 115, an ounce short. The rules say you can put it on the scales 3 different times. And I went out and bought one of those scales after MLF got started. I wanted to see how it all worked and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The straighter you can hang that fish, the heavier that scale is going to read.
Really? So the guys who are strapping it on the top lip and they're all cockeyed on there, they're doing themselves a disservice.
They are. They're costing themselves ounces. So Bobby Lane puts it on the scales again, 115. He has one more chance at it. He's trying to get it just right. Meanwhile, water's falling off this fish. This fish is actually losing weight, but maybe he can get it on there straighter and take advantage of every ounce. He throws it on there the 3rd time and it weighs 2 pounds. So now it counts. He vaults into the lead. He hangs on for the next minute and a half or whatever. He wins. He is instantly overjoyed. He's wildly emotional. We saw it play out in real time. And those were real official results at that moment. That's unlike anything I've ever seen in a tournament before. When I watched the Bassmaster Classic, and let's keep in mind, it was the closest Bassmaster Classic in 25 years. The closest Bassmaster Classic since 1997, when Dion Hibden beat Dalton Bobo by 1 ounce. One of the closest in history. And I was expecting Kyle Welcher to win because we had seen the Bass track numbers. We had seen that Kyle Welcher appeared to be ahead. We had seen that Jason Christie has blown Bassmaster Classics on day 3 before. So we had every reason to believe that it was going to happen one more time. But then, hours after the competition has ended, we see Jason Christie put his fish on the scales and they outweigh what we expected. And they outweigh Kyle Welcher's fish. And Jason Christie is the champion. But instead of saying, wow, that was amazing, I say, I guess he just sandbagged the weight. It was a very different reaction for me. A very different reaction. I thought it was cool. I thought it was exciting. But I realized that what had happened was Christie, whether intentionally or innocently, I have an opinion there, underestimated the weight of his fish. And there was a delay of a couple of hours between when he caught the last one that went in the well and when he hit the scales. There was none of that delay, none of that false drama at the Redcrest. And I loved the way the Redcrest went down. Thought it was awfully cool. Another thing I would say about Redcrest, Matt, is I know that they want to beat Bass, and I know Bass wants to beat MLF. But I think there's a better way than going head to head. And what I hope MLF will do next year is to put that tournament in June, a month ahead of ICAST or a little bit more. Take it up north. In June, you can go up north. You can go to the upper Mississippi. You can go to New York. You can go to other places that have never seen a classic or have not seen a classic in 40 years. And you can show it to a new audience. You'll do better with your expo. You won't have the smaller crowds, I don't think. And exhibitors will show up. If you have a crowd, exhibitors will want to be there. That's all they care about. They don't care if it's in June or if it's in March. They just want the crowd. I think if they'll take it up north, move it to June, I think their expo could be dramatically better attended.
Right on. That's kind of, like I said, what I echoed. I was not as impressed with the overall fishing product. I talked with you about, I think it was just a combination of me really wanting to see how they attacked Grand Lake. Haven't seen it before, and then so many guys laying off of the gas, which you would never see in a 5-fish tournament. I had a lot of people that would be like, well, you got guys that say fish and stuff, and it's like, yeah, but they're not weighing. They go like, okay, now let's go catch a 5. They're still trying to upgrade their bag. But yeah, I have similar thoughts. But I thought it was the same type of drama with the Christie Welcher Blaylock as as with the Bobby Lane and Wheeler and all those guys that were one bite away. I didn't think just the fact that it happened hours later and was off the water. Like I said, I think the bass track is just a guesstimate, an estimate. Back in the day, like how close did those guys know? So like if they had a close classic, right? We're talking before Bass Track, before the internet. Like let's go back to that 97 classic, the infamous, was it to go from 2 ounces to 4 ounces for the dead fish penalty, which cost Bobo wasn't it like the middle of summer on a river or something where like fish expired quite regularly?
Yeah, it was on Logan Martin in Alabama, and he caught a fish. It surprised him that the fish died. And as you said, in 97, the dead fish penalty was 4 ounces. A year earlier, the dead fish penalty had been 2 ounces. So because of the dead fish penalty change, Dalton Bobo lost the classic by an ounce instead of won the classic by an ounce.
That's wild. But did they keep them separate then? Like, was there any intrigue, or were the guys talking amongst each other back then? Like, did Bass used to try to do more to make it more of them? Was that a big deal for Ray Scott?
It was a huge deal for Ray Scott. It was, there was no Bass Track, obviously. There was nothing like that. Guys had the opportunity to talk backstage, but in a tournament like that, where it's probably too close to call visually, then they would have had no idea where they were at. They would have been genuinely surprised. And very few guys were weighing the fish as they came in. Plus, they would have no idea if their weights are going to match up with a scale. So there's a lot of unknowns when they stepped up there. There were not even reports from the water saying what a guy had. The only report you might get was later when some photographers came in, or when a press observer came in, and you could say, "Hey, how did the guy do?" He said, "Well, he's got 5, and they're, I don't know, maybe they weigh 13, 15 pounds." But it would be pretty big gaps in those estimates. Now, Bass had a guy named Pee Wee Powers, a wonderful guy who used to work the bump board, tournament guy. Used to work the bump board, and Pee Wee had calibrated eyes. He could look in your live well and tell you within a few ounces of what you had.
Just looking at him.
Just looking at him. He had seen so many fish, and it was amazing how good Pee Wee was at it. So back in the days, I used to call Pee Wee when everybody was off the water and they were coming to the weigh-in at the classic. I would call Pee Wee and I'd say, "Hey, Pee Wee, what do you think? Who's got this thing?"
Oh, because he's seen them all.
I'm sorry?
He saw them all at the lake.
Yeah, he saw them all
to make sure they were alive before they head to the arena. So now okay, I got you.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm sorry. A lot of people don't know that, but these fish are bumped and so forth and measured at the lake and determined whether they're dead or alive at the lake, not 90 miles and an hour and a half or 2 hours later at the weigh-in venue. So Pee Wee got to look at them just as they're coming off the water. And he was deadly accurate. He never missed. And one year, it was 2009. And there was a thing called Bass and Cider at the time. Matt, I know you'll remember Bass and Cider.
I wrote for it. That was
I
somehow wrote for it for 2 years and never made any more money with Jeffries. I don't know how that worked, but did hundreds of articles for it.
Well, in 2009, I was the editor of Bassmaster.com and Bass and Cider, which are kind of competing operations at Bass at the time. There is no more Bass and Cider, but it was a pay site. And it was a close classic. It was going to come down between Skeet Reese and Mike Iaconelli. And according to the Bass Track stuff, Iaconelli was probably going to win. He had a several ounce lead over Skeet Reese. But Iaconelli tends to overestimate what he has, and Skeet tends to underestimate what he has. And I was just wondering who in the world has this thing. But of course, I had the inside track because I had Pee Wee's cell number.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm up there at the weigh-in venue in Shreveport, and I call Pee Wee, and he says, "I believe Mr. Reese has it by, 5 or 6 ounces." Exactly what he had it by. And so because I was running Bass Insider and I had been told to compete against Bassmaster.com in that classic, I went out and announced that Skeet Reese had won the classic an hour and a half before his fish hit the scales.
Jeez.
And that got me in trouble.
Yeah.
But I got to tell Skeet, I said, hey man, Pee Wee thinks you have it. Congratulations. And a big smile came over Skeet's face. And he said, yep, I talked to Pee Wee.
He said he knew he had it.
Well, he didn't know,
Yeah.
As good as Pee Wee was, he was not official.
What's your big fish theory again, as far as how far you can be back and still win? And then have you come up with a formula for the every fish counts yet to determine if someone's in or someone's out of it?
Well, let me on my theory about how far back you can come back.
Yeah.
In an event like the Classic, a 3-day event like the Classic, or even a 4-day event. When I framed it, this would have been back in 2013. When I came up with it, when I ran the numbers and figured it out, I learned that if you trailed by more than the weight of a tournament big fish at that venue, then you were probably out of it going into the final day. But what I've learned since then is, if the fishing is in the early spring and the fishing is not great, by which I mean guys are averaging bringing fewer than 4 fish to the scales, then that rule is not as solid. Okay. So if you go someplace like Conroe, where the average bag has fewer than 4 fish, and there's a wild disparity between the average fish and the daily lunker, then that's kind of out the window. It still generally holds true. It's going to hold true about 90% of the time, but it's not absolutely rock solid. I don't know how to calculate something like that on every fish counts, because I don't have that data.
Because they like to say, well, you're never out of it. Well, that's not necessarily true.
Everybody loves to say it. It's anybody's tournament. I remember one time I said that during a Bassmaster.com broadcast during the Classic in 2013. In fact, the one that Cliff Pace won on Grand Lake. I said, no, Cliff Pace, he's going to win. This is before they launch on day 3. And it was because I had just determined my theory about how far you could come back from, and he led by more than the weight of a daily big fish. Mm-hmm. So I said, no, this is Cliff's tournament. And if you recall, he won the tournament, of course, and he didn't even have 5 fish on the final day. He still won the tournament, so I was right. But as soon as I said that, I was basically ushered off camera and pushed out of any future broadcasts, because I was not going to continue to feed the garbage.
I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but I want to revisit it, especially with what Wheeler's doing. I mentioned the first half, Lucas coming back from back to back, and I was thinking about all the young guys that are doing it, and then I'm like, well, these guys are like at 30 now, like they're in their 30s. And I know your big stats as far as the average age of guys, when they win, how they win, some prodigies, stuff like that. So if you have time, I would love to dive into that topic with you when we come back. You good for another segment?
Absolutely.
All right. It is BTL on a Monday, May 2nd, with fishing tackle retailers Ken Duke. We will be back after this.
The new Android series is the peak of the Denali lineup and offers the ultimate Denali experience. The Android series features 36-ton multi-directional graphite combined with interlock blank technology for added strength. Each rod is outfitted with Royal titanium guides that will not fail. The blank is fitted into an easy-touch, soft-feel EVA foam grip with exposed blank reel seat. This all allows the Android to transmit every movement of your bait and even the most subtle bites. The Android series is the finest rod Denali has ever made and offers an angler the ultimate fishing experience with a limited lifetime warranty. See the full lineup of Android rods at DenaliRods.com.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
Combining one of the most popular hook styles with Gamakatsu's beefier Superline offering, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend delivers the strength necessary to target big fish in heavy cover. Well suited for braided line and heavier fluorocarbon, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend is built using stronger Superline wire that allows anglers to easily fish a finesse worm around heavy cover. The round bend offers a larger bite area, perfect for any worm presentation, while increasing your hookup ratios. The newly enhanced Z-Bend holds your plastics on the hook longer, reducing the number of pull-offs and reducing damage to plastics. Available in 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, and 5/0, this is the most durable worm hook, designed for heavier lines that hold your bait on longer.
Preparation is key to success. And that preparation starts well before you ever hit the water. You're only as strong as your connection to the fish, and your line is that critical connection. Confidence in your line every minute of every day on the water is a necessity, and failure, it's not an option. Sunline makes the fluorocarbon, nylon, and braided lines to give you the strength to guarantee your confidence.
Vibrating jigs are a great choice for any time of year, and the Kamikaze Swim-On is a perfect match for any vibrating jig. Two sizes and the unique tail design gives it a bait fish profile and a great swimming action for realism. There are 17 colors. See them all at bigbitebaits.com.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look. That matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
Welcome back, BTL, on a Monday. Talking with Ken Duke from Fishing Tackle Retailer. And I know we've talked about this before, but I was thinking the other day as Jacob Wheeler leads another round of BPT competition going into day 2 there. I mean, the guy was a prodigy. There's no other way to say that. You look at the immediate success that he had out of Indiana. It's a heck of a story if you don't know it. He basically caught a fish to just barely make the BFL regional that year and was fishing with a friend, and then he just had a couple things happen, and then he won the All-American, and then the following year, 2 years later, when he was 19, when he was 21, he won the Forest Wood Cup. And it's hard to believe that was a decade ago that Jacob Wheeler won the Forest Wood Cup, and then go over to Jordan Lee and his back-to-back classics in, I believe, 16 and 17. And that was, 6 years ago. Was it 17 and 18? 17 and 18. That's still 5 years ago, half a decade ago, and all these guys. And I wanted to kind of get your take on it. And I know you've gone over this before, but I would just like to see, has this group of anglers kind of redefined the age that anglers are reaching the pinnacle of the sport? Because I believe before it was something like in the 40s or something, wasn't it, Ken?
Well, that's a couple of questions there, Matt. You're hitting me from a couple of directions.
Well, take it the easiest way. I just wanted to try to set the stage for it, but it seems like these guys are achieving more at a younger age than historically the other, I guess, groups or classes of anglers had, as in the Skeets and Edwins and Kevins and things like that as a whole. Is that accurate or not?
I don't know. I'm gonna throw some things at you, and I'll let you and the folks watching and listening decide what you think. I think that a guy like Jacob Wheeler is a generational talent. Okay, I think he comes along once in a generation, just as Kevin VanDam was a generational talent, just as Roland Martin was a generational talent, just as all that. Our sport historically, anglers have reached their peaks between the ages of 30 and 45 years old. Okay, that's when you're at your peak. Some guys are outstanding before that. The Wheelers, the Jordan Lees, Brandon Palaniuk, Justin Lucas, a number of guys were good in their 20s. But Wheeler has been historically good, at least historically since Kevin VanDam. People forget that VanDam maybe was also just a remarkably successful angler in his 20s. I mean, VanDam won his first Angler of the Year title at 24. Well, Wheeler didn't win one until, his last season. So although he'd won some championships, he had not won a major Angler of the Year title until he was basically 30. Those guys, Wheeler, Lee, they're now 30 years old. So now, in a lot of ways, I would expect them to move into what I would say is their prime. What we're also seeing is a changing of the guard. Let's look at the guys who are now hitting their mid to late 40s. VanDam is now, or when I say now, I mean at some point this year. In VanDam's case, it'll happen in October. But at some point this year, VanDam is going to turn 55 years old. He's not the Kalamazoo kid anymore.
55?
55.
No way.
Yeah. On October 14th, 2022, he'll be 55 years old.
I had no idea.
Yeah. But let's look at the rest of the guys who are now moving into that area where I say they're historically past their prime. It's not to say that they can't win a tournament.
Historically. It's based on stats.
Yeah. Speaking from the stats. Of course, we lost Aaron Martins, tragically. Love Aaron Martins, but Aaron was reaching into that area now where Aaron was going to be past. Aaron would have been 50 this year. But the guys born between VanDam in 67 and let's put the end of it at about 75, we're talking about guys like Skeet Reese, Edwin Evers, Todd Faircloth, Mike Iaconelli, Greg Hackney, Jason Christie, David Dudley, Dean Rojas, Takahiro Omori, Ish Monroe, Steve Kennedy, Bobby and Chris Lane. Those guys who have dominated the sport for the last 20 years, in VanDam's case, 30 years, they're now demonstrably moving into a new era in their career where I personally don't expect them to dominate anymore. So Wheeler's coming along at just the right time to take it over. He's moving into his peak just as these guys are moving out. The same is true of Jordan Lee. So there's a real changing of the guard, and it's happening right now. But that doesn't mean that the guys who are moving to the other side of the hill on the downside, that they're done. Not by any means. A, there are too many of them. B, they're still going to sneak in and win some tournaments, and they're not going to sneak in because everybody knows they're coming. And the average age of and I'm going to go with Elite Series because the Elite Series is easier for me to quantify. I have a lot more data on the Elite Series and so forth. but the average age of an Elite Series winner is 40.7 years. Okay. So 40.7 years is the average age of an elite winner. This year, the average age is 42 and a half. The last 2 years after the big changes in the elites, the last 3 years really after the big changes in the elites, when everybody left to go to MLF, 68 guys left, the average dipped below 40, but only a little bit. In 2019, it was 39.7. Then it was 37.6. Then it was 37.7. This year, it's 42.6.
Of the winners, the average
Of
age
the winners.
of
These are just the winners. But I think that's a fair way to do it. Another fair way to do it, and I have that data. I should pull it up here. Is to look at the average age of classic qualifiers. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's a hallmark of success. That's consistency, top third of the field for the most part.
Yeah, exactly.
Over 8 or 9 events.
Now, historically for the 52 years of the Bassmaster Classic, the average classic qualifier has been 39 years old. Okay. And over the last 3 years, since the elites have had their big change and all the turnover, the average age has gone from 39 to 37, 39, 38. It's gotten a tiny bit younger, but not significantly, not really noticeably. The guys who win, the guys who qualify for the Classic, they're 35 to 45-year-old guys. That's always been true. People want to say, "Oh, look at all the youth in the sport now." So what? They're not the guys who are dominating for the most part. They got your Wheelers, you got your Lees, but they're not. They haven't taken over the sport, and they're not going to. They're not going to, because this is one of those sports where it requires a certain amount of experience, whether it's just finding the best places to stay and the best places to eat, or it's gaining real experience on a particular body of water. And to get that experience, it requires time on the water, time on the trail.
So that's all just a perception then of, all the young guys are taking over.
No, I mean, let's look at the Elite Series winners again. Let's just go back to that for a moment. Historically, there have been fewer than 20 elite winners. And I'm talking about hundreds. I'm sorry. I'm talking about what now? I'm talking about well over 100 tournaments in elite history, right?
Yep.
There have been 146 elite tournaments. Fewer than 20 of them have been won by guys in their 20s.
Really?
Yeah. About 20 of them have been won by guys in their 20s. That's way
I'm not gonna say
that's
less than
statistically insignificant, but that ain't much. That's less than, it's not much.
Yeah.
The average age of an elite winner, as I was mentioning, is 40.7.
Yeah.
And it's just not, it's not a youth dominated sport. There's still a ton of guys in their 40s. Let's look at the last 3 years. There have been 3 winners in their 20s. 3 in the last 3 years.
Yeah, that seems to. So what Kirchhoff and Stanley Mitchell did was extraordinary. Are those the 2 youngest?
Oh, for classic winners?
Yeah.
Those are 2 of the youngest. Well, Stanley Mitchell was youngest at 21 years, 5 months. Yeah, Stanley was the youngest. By a pretty wide margin, actually.
Interesting.
But it's not the youth thing that people seem to think it is. It drives me crazy when people want to talk about the youth movement in the sport, because it just shows me they're not looking very closely.
it hasn't changed with technology to where you're seeing more younger anglers being successful quicker because they've got the YouTube and all that stuff? Like, have you done any of the numbers to see if that's actually made the change? Made it slightly younger even?
Well, it's slightly younger, but I think the slightly younger that we're seeing in the Elite Series, we have such a weird turmoil in the sport with the two major leagues, BASS and MLF. MLF is old because they chose guys who were established and had track records and bigger fan followings, and they recruited those people over there. So MLF is significantly older than the Elite Series. The Elite Series had to go out and find whoever they could on some level to fill in beginning in 2019. But there is a slight youth movement on the elite side, but it's entirely due to that recruiting effort that Bass was forced to make because of MLF. It's not because younger guys are qualifying. That ain't it. It's because they had to fill a field, and that's how they chose to fill it, by recruiting, and more young guys, jumped at the opportunity than older guys. But plenty of older guys jumped at the opportunity too.
I kind of was looking at the stats on this because you mentioned VanDam. Like, I was looking over his career with Bass, and you say, well, yeah, look at it. It's easy to have top finishes in fields where you're talking about E50s where you can't finish below 50th, and 90 or 100 in the Elite Series, and yeah, you beat in half the field and you do a top 50. And part of my justification for the Opens has always been, well, it's been these 230 boat fields and it's across it all, so yeah, I'm proud. This was my first 100th plus place finish in 12 Opens. But then I started digging into it, and I you go back to these invitationals and things back in the day, and they had like massive field. Long story short, Kevin VanDam's only finished below 100th 4 times with Bass, and like he's got dozens and dozens and dozens of like 300 plus boat derbies. Like that, the fields used to be huge in those invitationals, did they not?
Well, they did. I mean, there have been 300 boat fields in BASS history going back as recently as the late 90s. I don't remember. I haven't done this in a while, but when VanDam reached the 19 or 20 win level with Bass, and when he reached the 19 win level with Bass and tied Roland Martin for most career wins, I sat down and I tried to take a look at what size fields Kevin and Roland had faced. And Roland's average field was about 200 pro anglers.
Wow.
Kevin's average field was about 100. Because like you said, Kevin's in some elite 50s. There's always the classic, which is a low number.
They count
Kevin was also
12-man all-star event as a Bass event, an official win.
Right. And so, that taints it a little bit. That definitely colors or adds a level of conversation, let's say, to it. But VanDam's average field was about 100. Roland Martin's average field was about 200. And so that makes a difference on some level. But I think it would
have to make it harder to win a 200 boat field. But then you could also look at the level of competition of those 200 versus the 100.
Yeah, I think it all kind of levels out. When Roland Martin launched in 1971, he in a 300 boat field, he probably had 30 guys he needed to beat. When Kevin launched in a 100 boat field, he probably had 50 guys he had to beat. So, who knows? It's so much conjecture, speculation. I think Kevin VanDam is the greatest bass tournament angler in history.
Let's do top 5 in their prime. Like, if you could have these guys in their prime using the technology that they were using in their prime, putting them on the water now, 5 guys in their prime head to head, who are the top guys that, in your opinion, were at the pinnacle of their careers that you'd like to see all get on the water together? Like, this is the age-old question that they always have. Could so-and-so have hit a baseball off of, could Babe Ruth hit a baseball off of Nolan Ryan, that type of thing. But I'm just curious, in your pantheon angling greats in their prime, who are the top 5 that you are like clearly the best of that entire generation?
Wow, that's so tough. Okay,
I think you could
play.
do it pretty easily.
No, and I've toyed with the idea of how to calculate that, but I would do it. I would sit down and I would grind through
statistically.
I would grind through
it
statistically.
Okay, off the top of your head, maybe a little stats, maybe a little heart, maybe a little. I mean, this might be a little bit objective and subjective.
All right, I'm going to do them alphabetically, okay? So you're not going to.
That's how you get out of the. That's how you get out of the. Well, you had me at number 3.
You're exactly right. But I am going to do it alphabetically because I don't want to get beat up by Matt Pangrac.
I'm not going to beat you up. I'm curious about this.
If I had to rank the top 5 guys,
Clay should have said but I'm not talking about Mount Rushmore, because I think you could be one of the greatest all time without being absolutely incredibly dominant for one period. You see what I'm saying? I think there's a difference.
Yeah. Here they are.
All right.
Number 1 alphabetically is Rick Clunn.
Okay.
Rick tailored his career to the Bassmaster Classic. Rick realized he started his pro career in 1974, and he realized early on that the only way to make a viable career out of it was to win not just a Bassmaster Classic, but multiple Bassmaster Classics. And so he started approaching all his tournaments like the Bassmaster Classic with limited practice and things like that. And he developed his system for approaching a body of water based on seasonal habits and so forth. Rick Clunn is the first guy on my list. Bill Dance. People don't realize what an 800-pound gorilla Bill Dance was in the early days of this sport.
Competitive? Like, did he have a competitive streak? Like he hated to lose, that type of thing? Or
Bill Dance still has a wildly competitive streak.
Really?
In him.
I didn't know
Oh
that.
yeah. I got to fish an ICAST tournament with Bill Dance, which is a bucket list item for me. And I am a huge Bill Dance fan. But Bill Dance won half of the first 14 tournaments in BASS history. Okay. He won half of them. He lost a lot of his edge and his luster after Roland Martin hit the trail, but also because he started doing TV full time.
Okay.
And so that took a lot of his time and energy and so forth. And that was a big issue. Bill Dance, wildly competitive. I've had some cool conversations with Bill Dance. Tell you one real quick. This is back in the day of pro on pro, where you drew and you had to decide whose boat you were going to take, whose fish you were going to go after, stuff like that. Bill would size up the guy he was fishing with. So during Bill's time running the boat, because you also had to share time running the boat. I might be in Matt Pangrac's boat, but for half the day, I get to run the trolling motor and I get to decide where we're fishing.
Mm-hmm.
When Bill was running the boat, he would size up the guy in the back. How far can that guy cast accurately? I'm going to pull him 5-10 feet beyond that. If I notice that he's got a little hitch in his cast, and maybe he's got a little arthritis, a little pain, a little tendonitis, I'm going to start getting in his head. I'm going to say, hey, Matt, you sure you're not doing permanent damage to your shoulder out here? He's looking for every edge. Bill Dance was a force. And he's my number 2 guy alphabetically. Number 3, Aaron Martens. I think that Aaron Martens at his best was as good as there's ever been. Aaron didn't have the same competitive streak that a lot of guys do, didn't have the killer instinct that a lot of guys do. But on his game, I've never seen anybody that good. And
and you put him at the top even without a classic or cup title.
Well, Bill Dance didn't have one either.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a great point. Okay.
And the guy I'm going to list next doesn't have one either.
Okay.
And that's so Aaron is 3rd for me alphabetically. 4th for me alphabetically is Roland Martin.
Yeah, I just wrote his name down after you said that.
Yeah. And of course, Roland's got 9 Angler of the Year titles. Amazing talent. Still going strong at 82 years old. He's got a terrific YouTube channel. I can't say enough great things about Roland. It's absolutely the most dominant angler in professional bass fishing history. It ain't Kevin VanDam. It is not. Kevin VanDam's the best, but nobody dominated like Roland Martin. Roland Martin averaged for 3 seasons in a row, 71, 72, 73. Roland Martin averaged a top 3% finish.
Holy cow. For 3 years.
This is in an era when there are 300 boats out there.
3
He's
years.
averaging a top 9 finish for a 3-year stretch.
Son
is right. Nobody has ever dominated like that, and nobody ever will. It was a young sport then. There were not many people who really got it.
Okay.
And Roland pushed the envelope on a lot of things. So
so you don't get rules named after you without pushing the envelope a little bit. So we got Rick Clunn, Bill Dance, Aaron Martins, and Roland Martin. We're talking to Ken Dukes, subjective and objective top 5 guys who you'd like to see on the water at the top of their game.
Off the cuff too, which is
you're doing phenomenal. But we're down to number 5.
We're down to number 5, and these are alphabetical. And number 5, of course, is Kevin VanDam.
Yep.
Who is unparalleled in his, you got guys like Roland who won 9 AOIs and Clunn who won 4 classics. Well, VanDam won 7 AOIs and 4 classics. And VanDam would have won 8 AOIs had he not been disqualified at Santee Cooper in 2006. All he had to do was launch in that tournament, catch 1 fish, and he'd have been AOI instead of Mike Iaconelli. And there were other opportunities that Kevin might have been able to tie Roland Martin for 9 AOIs, and it's almost unfathomable that Kevin won 4 Bassmaster Classics. I don't know how many of the folks watching and listening had a chance to ever go to a classic and watch what VanDam had to contend with.
It was a dog and pony show.
It was ridiculous. VanDam would launch and 100 or 150 boats would follow him.
It was insane.
Absolutely nutty out there. And he couldn't fish the same water twice on consecutive days, hardly, because other people were picking it apart as soon as he drove away. He had to find new water every day or find a way to protect the water that he was in. VanDam is the ultimate tournament strategist. Nobody is in Kevin VanDam's league in tournament strategy, in my opinion. What do you think, Matt?
I 100% agree. I mean, listen to this in the classic from 2004 to 2013. Consecutive finishes: 3rd, 1st, 5th, 3rd, 3rd, 30th, 1st, 11th, and 8th. That's 2004 through 2013. That's going into the final day of the Bassmaster Classic as Kevin VanDam, as a classic champ already. He had 1 under his belt starting there after the 2001 Classic in New Orleans. But with the media pressure, the camera boats, and the spectators, and being in contention on the final day and either winning it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those out of the 11 years.
Astounding. I never imagined he would win another after his second one in 2005 in Pittsburgh. What he did in 2010 and 2011 may never be duplicated. To go 2 years in a row and win the Classic, win the major championship and Angler of the Year, both years, and that's ridiculous. Of course, he won 4 Angler of the Years in a row during that period, but in 10 and 11, when he won the Classic and AOY both years, that's stupid.
You know what's crazy? After 2011, I'd have lost money if I'd have bet to said, hey, you know what? Kevin VanDam will never have another top 5 in a Bassmaster Classic. After, he came off that streak. That streak ended in 2013. And, the last classics, he went 8th, 26th, 48th, 10th, 29th. And then obviously 19 was the last one he fished in. It's crazy. You never really know what you're watching when you're watching it. That's why I love talking with you. I love doing the statistics. So I love it because it's so hard to put it in perspective in fishing, because it's fishing, right? And you see a Michael Jordan, you see a LeBron James or a Tiger Woods or like a Roger Clemens or something, and you can visually see they're saying, well, he's doing things that no one else can do. And then you have the stats that back it up, the Tim Kirchkins, all the people who do that. But in fishing, you can't, they'll do some cool stuff and win tournaments, but like you could line up 100 people, dress them all like Kevin VanDam, and if you've never seen fishing, you literally have a 1 in 100 chance of picking them out. So in order to be able to put statistical significance to it, apply it at the time and say, here's why this is incredible, what he's doing, and he's doing it now. Here's some historical data behind it. I think that does the angler service. It allows people to understand that what they're watching in this era, which has been difficult because of the MLF and the BPT and the formats with, some zeroing weights and things like that. But as a whole, when you log on and watch a Jacob Wheeler, you log on and watch a Brandon Polinick, it keeps you from going, that's the greatest guy who's ever done that on earth and he's the greatest ever. But it also keeps you from going, it's a guy who catches some fish. It puts some relevance around it, some significance around it. So you're watching potentially one of the greatest guys to ever do it, or he's in the middle of something that's historic. And there's not that many people in the sport, like kind of the guardian of the sport, that cares to do that, to show all the listeners of BTL. Like, I think that's we have one of the most educated fan bases. I think we have the most educated fan base because it's a niche. Like, you don't end up listening to this podcast if you're, into gardening and bird watching. Like, you're into tournament bass fishing, right? For the most part.
You're absolutely right. And I only wish that the tournament organizations themselves would have as much respect and regard for this information, this history, this data as they should, because they don't. And it's not a recent problem, although in recent years it's gotten really bad. It's been a problem since Ray Scott had the first tournament on Beaver Lake in 1967.
Yeah.
It's just a problem.
We got to wrap things up, Mr. Duke, but especially as far as historical significance and things, I do want to mention, everyone has always asked about, when are you doing the world record shows and the big bass stuff? And I've always, we talk in the industry and have talked to you, and I know Dave and I talk and everything. We're like, man, you put so many hours into doing what you do, and it's a labor of love. It's not like someone's like, hey, I'll pay you 6 figures to put these stats together.
No,
it's you doing it. And I was very pleased to hear a rumor that you might potentially be coming with something down the road that I think a lot of our listeners would be interested. I know I would be interested in listening to.
Oh, thank you, Matt, for giving me a chance to do this. And thank you, because by making this statement now, it's going to put pressure on me to actually follow through and make it happen. There is no pressure like BTL pressure. I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to call it the Big Bass Podcast. And I plan to launch it in the middle of June. And I can't compete with Matt Pangrac or BTL. I can't do what he does nearly as well as he does it. But what I feel like I can do is talk about big fish and make it very specific about big fish. And what the Big Bass Podcast is going to do, it's going to talk about the world records. It's going to talk about some giants that got away, some historical fish that maybe people don't know about. It's going to dive in and do, go deep down the rabbit hole on some giant fish that maybe you don't know about, that hopefully you don't know about. I can almost guarantee you won't know about all of them. And it's going to cover largemouth, smallmouth, spot, you name it. And it's going to be, some of it's going to be very modern. Some of it's going to be big fish that happen in tournaments. But some of it's going to be big fish from the 19th century that could have been a world record, but for whatever reason, it's not. And I want to do that. I also want to do a world record show with you, Matt Pangrac, on the smallmouth or the largemouth or whatever you you want to cover one day. But yeah, I'm hoping that the Big Bass podcast will find an audience. I'm not.
Yeah, who doesn't like listening to big fish stories?
Yeah, well, and that's why I want to do it. And that's why I feel like it's a niche. The last thing I want to do is compete or try to compete with my friends who are already doing something great. And as I said, I can't compete with what you're doing on BTL. It's quantum leaps better than I could do.
No, it's totally different. People always say that, Ken, and I don't mean to interrupt you on this, but this drives me nuts when people say, "Oh, there's hundreds of thousands of YouTube channels, hundreds of different television channels. There's all sorts of different mediums and ways that you can digest it. The fact that there's, as one genre becomes more popular, that shows that there's interest in it to where people are like, hey, there's interest in this. I want to capitalize on it. That's good for it as a whole. One of the things that Jeffrey's always talked about that we always talk about on BTL is, always be thinking of the next thing when you do it, but provide a quality product and do what you do, and don't ever compare yourself to what the others are doing. And I listen to a lot of the different podcasts out there. I like what Serious Angler, Bailey, those guys are doing over there. Josh Bertrand out there, the guys out at Josh Bertrand, they tell some great story at Anglers Happy Hour. I listen to Luke Duncan, I listen to Mercer. Sometimes if I went back and listened to my own show with Todd Castledine, because you're pushing all the buttons and all this stuff, and then people you're like, I don't remember him saying that, and you go back and listen to it. Anglers Channel, Bass Cat, there's all sorts of stuff that's out there, and I think it's all great. I think it all has its own niche, and everyone's trying to do something different with it. So dude, I'd be all in on listening to you kind of talk about some big fish from the past.
Well, I hope so. I hope that, and I appreciate the opportunity to plug this, and hopefully I have a chance to do it again. But I plan to start it in mid-June. I hope to get 4 or 5 shows in the can before I launch it. It's going to be, right now I'm thinking it's going to be just a straight up podcast. It's going to be an audio recording. And if there's video at all, it's not going to be actual video. If there's images at all, they're going to be on a separate website, that sort of thing. But because I have that face for podcast and not video.
You got the wardrobe.
That's true, especially when I wear my BTL cap, which is right over there.
You got the wardrobe. Well, as usual, we got through about half of the things, which means that you'll have to come back on in a couple months. Probably let's do, what is it? The beginning of May, June. Let's try to do something right before ICAST. Kind of give our viewers something to kind of look forward to watch, and how to kind of digest that. But anything else, Mr. Dude?
No, man, doing a great job on BTL. Everybody knew it would happen, and it's been enormously impressive what you've done.
I survived April. That was my key. If I knew I survived April, I think I would be good.
I'm still horrified that you haven't come down and let me take you fishing or introduce you to some cool people who would also be great on BTL. You got to get to Florida.
I know. You know all the cool people. You know a lot of just kind of eccentric personalities. That's your forte.
You're right. I collect interesting friends.
You're never just like, hey, this is Jim and he's an accountant. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You're always just like, this is so-and-so who invented this deal and this, and he's from Botswana. And you're like, how do you meet all these people?
Oh man, that's what I love about our sport. Not just bass fishing, but fishing generally. Some amazingly cool people are into fishing, and bass fishing in particular. And plus, I have an advantage by being in the fishingest place in the world, which is Florida. Florida collects strange anglers.
You do. Well, I enjoyed it. I needed a little bit of hour of fun after just driving home with self-loathing over the last couple days there from.
All right, now, as soon as you hit your driveway, as soon as you hit your destination, you got to turn off the self-loathing and change that focus to the next one.
I'm focused on BTL this week. I'm focused on the Dick Hiley St. Jude Bass Classic, which I will be at next week up in Minnesota. If you are so inclined to donate in the BTL family and did not get a T-shirt, you can donate directly through the link that is on BassZone.com. And then also we will have info on Ken Duke's new trophy bass show coming out. We'll catch up with you. And you want to check out some of the stuff that's going on over there, fishingtackleretailer.com. That's the website,
Absolutely.
right?
That's it. You nailed it.
That's the way to
Thanks,
go.
Matt.
This has been BTL on a Monday, the first Monday in May. We will be back tomorrow with another exciting edition featuring Bradley Hallman talking about his epic comeback on Ross Barnett. This has been BTL. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.